Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
My wife and my children will not be watching Raw. Because I am going to do something that is unthinkable. I'm going to leave you with my anger. Sleep well, sleep well, sleep well.
A Fox News alert, and the Associated Press is now echoing the report that we just got from our Jonathan Seri in Atlanta. Law enforcement officials who are close to the investigation say that pro wrestler Chris Benoit strangled his wife, smothered his 7-year-old son, and then hanged himself in the weight room of his suburban Atlanta mansion. 3 deaths over the weekend. They were just discovered yesterday. It's believed that he killed his wife and son sometime over the weekend and then waited until yesterday to hang himself. That, according to law enforcement officials close to the investigation. More details as they become available.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Seethruthescript here, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the life of Canadian wrestler Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit was one of the most talented wrestlers in the world and had a storied career that spanned over 2 decades with a ton of highs but also many lows. So let's dive into his life, career, and ultimately his death. Starting with his early life, Christopher Michael Benoit was born on May 21st, 1967 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. He grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, where he became interested in wrestling at a young age. He trained at the Hart Family Dungeon, which was run by Stu Hart, and made his wrestling debut in 1985 at Stampede Wrestling. Benoit quickly gained a reputation for his technical skills and high-flying maneuvers. He won several championships in Stampede Wrestling before signing with New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1986. Benoit spent several years wrestling in Japan before returning to North America to sign with the World Championship Wrestling, aka WCW. Benoit had a successful run in WCW, where he had formed a tag team with Dean Malenko and later became a member of the Four Horsemen stable. He won several championships with WCW, including the United States Championship and the Television Championship. In 2000, Benoit signed with the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, which later became WWE. Benoit quickly became one of the company's top stars, winning numerous championships, including the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 20. Benoit was known for his intense and technical in-ring style. He was a master of the German suplex and was also known for his diving headbutt. Benoit was one of the most respected wrestlers in the industry for his dedication to his craft and willingness to put his body on the line for his fans. Also in the late 90s, the nickname Canadian Crippler became synonymous with Benoit's wrestling style. This was because of his finishing submission move, the Crippler Crossface. He even used this move to win his first World Heavyweight Championship in the WWE at WrestleMania 20 on March 14th of 2004. However, a little over a year later, one of Chris Benoit's close true friends in the industry had died on November 13th of 2005. That man was none other than Eddie Guerrero. Chris and Eddie had a close friendship that went beyond wrestling. They met in the late 1980s and bonded over their mutual respect for each other's abilities in the ring. They were often paired together in the WWE and won the Tag Team Championship multiple times. Outside of wrestling, they supported each other through personal struggles, such as Guerrero's battle with addiction. Guerrero's death in 2005 deeply affected Benoit and was a major factor in his own decline, which led to the tragic events in 2007. Despite the tragedy, their friendship remained a testament to the power of mutual respect and support in wrestling. Now, when it comes to Benoit's personal life, he got married with his first wife, Martina, going on to have 2 children, David and Megan. However, by 1997, that marriage started to break down and Benoit began living with Nancy Sullivan, the wife of the WCW booker and frequent opponent, Kevin Sullivan. Chris had a difficult relationship with management in WCW, particularly with Kevin Sullivan, who was both a wrestler and a backstage booker. Despite these challenges, Benoit won championships and left the WCW in 2000 due to disagreements over his contract and creative direction. These struggles highlighted the challenges wrestlers faced in the industry at the time. But despite the struggles of juggling his career and personal drama, Chris and Nancy gave birth to their first child, Daniel Christopher Benoit, on February 25th of 2000. Then later that year, on November 23rd of 2000, the two locked in and got married. Now, although the two did have some good times, their relationship was far from smooth sailing. There were reports of domestic violence in their marriage, which led to speculation about the nature of their relationship. Additionally, their careers in the wrestling industry often took them in different directions, causing strain on their personal lives. Mind you, for Nancy, this was her third marriage, and for Chris, it was his second. So it seemed undoubtable at a point that for these two, juggling their careers and relationship was a big obstacle. According to the Toronto Star, Nancy had filed for divorce in 2003, alleging quote-unquote cruel treatment. She requested a restraining order against her husband, who she said had threatened her and broken furniture in their Atlanta area home. However, a divorce was never actually finalized prior to their deaths. Now fast forward to the year 2007, it had been 2 years after the loss of his beloved friend and fan favorite Eddie Guerrero. Benoit was still putting on amazing performances for his fans. However, he was also at the same time battling with his addiction to painkillers, such as Xanax and hydrocodone. However, toxicology reports from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation showed that Benoit had in fact been taking testosterone before his death. For those that don't know, testosterone is a steroid, specifically an anabolic steroid. Anabolic means to build up or promote growth. According to the NIH, people who misuse anabolic steroids report more anger than non-users, as well as more fights, verbal aggression, and violence towards their significant others, sometimes called roid rage. Vice Media had reported on their documentary that Benoit was growing extremely paranoid leading up to his death. He began acting overly protective of his wife and son. Benoit feared that his child would be kidnapped after hearing about it happening to other famous wrestlers and entertainers. This fear was getting so bad that Benoit would take different routes to get to the gym, despite going to the same location for years. He even went as far as taking different cars and doing his best to stay out of the public's eye while out and about. Now, when you lump all of this with his rocky marriage, stressful career, and the loss of a good friend, it seemed almost inevitable something bad would happen. But I don't think any of us were prepared for how bad it was actually going to be. Now on June 19th, 2007, Benoit went on to fight Elijah Burke on ECW for the ECW Championship belt. Going on to win the fight, it seemed at least to the average wrestling fan that things were all good. If anything, fans were extremely excited to find out who Benoit would be facing just 5 days later for WWE's event, Vengeance Night of Champions. However, the day before Vengeance, close friend and nephew of Eddie Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero, got a call from Chris saying he couldn't attend an event they were scheduled for in Texas because his wife and son both had food poisoning and he wanted to look after them. But now it's the 24th of June and the fans are excited for Vengeance Night of Champions, when Chavo received a strange message from Benoit reading, "The dogs are in the enclosed pool area and the back door is open," and texted Guerrero his home address. Benoit's message didn't cause Guerrero any concern until he learned that Benoit hadn't shown up at the pay-per-view fight. Then he alerted WWE authorities, who called the police. They went to Benoit's home in Fayetteville, Georgia, which he shared with Nancy and 7-year-old Daniel, at which they found the gruesome scene of all of them dead. According to the New York Times, Nancy was found with her hands and feet tied and with blood under her head. Daniel was found in a bed. and Chris Benoit was found hanging from a weight machine cable in his home gym. Investigators soon determined that as early as June 22, 2007, Chris Benoit murdered Nancy and Daniel before killing himself. Nancy was strangled first and possibly in a rage. Next, it appears that Benoit gave his son Xanax, then smothered him. Then, before Chris Benoit died by suicide, he did some online searches. ABC News reports that he looked for stories about the prophet Elijah, who once raised a boy from the dead. Then Benoit searched for the easiest way a person could break their neck. After placing Bibles next to Nancy and Daniel's bodies, Chris Benoit went into the family's home gym. He tied a cable around his neck, attached it to the highest weight on a weight machine, and let go. So without further ado, let's break it down by the numbers. First, starting with Nancy, who was Chris's first victim, notice she was 43 years old at the time of her death. The words wife and murdered both equal 43. It was established that she had been strangled to death, which as you can see is a phrase that equates to 173 in the ordinal cipher. Notice the day she died, June 22nd, is the 173rd day of the year. Note the word strangled equals 37. Nancy died on a date with 37 numerology. Now we move on to June 23rd, the day Chris strangled his heavily sedated son using his signature crippler crossface wrestling move, according to the police. Benoit did this exactly 33 days from his son's birthday. Notice son and Bible both equal 33. Remember, he left a Bible by both his wife and son's bodies. Reports also mention that Daniel was strangled around 3:30 p.m., again with the 33 coding. On top of that, from Daniel's 7th to his death was a span of 3 months and 30 days. Observing that same time span, but just in days alone, is exactly 118 days. The words death and homicide both equal 118. Note the date numerology of Daniel's death, being 38 and 20, like the word death in the ordinal and reduction ciphers. Now it's also interesting that Daniel Benoit was born on the 56th day of the year. Notice his name equals 56 in the reduction cipher. He even died on a date with prime numerology of 56, at the age of 7 years old, a phrase that equals 56. But now it's June 24th, exactly 2 days after murdering his wife and son, but more specifically, 34 days after his 40th birthday, and the very day Chris hung himself on a weight machine in his home gym. Notice murder, suicide, and his surname Benoit all equal 34 in the reduction ciphers. Here you can see the match between Chris Benoit and the phrase hung himself, almost a perfect match in the base ciphers. Note that he killed himself on the 175th day of the year. You could also see that June 24th leaves 190 days in the year. His first name, Chris, equates to 190 in the Latin cipher. You can also see that Chris Benoit has that 67 in his name, which falls in line with the blood and human sacrifice code of 67, which sadly makes perfect sense since the story is that he killed his family and then himself. Like his son Daniel in the 33 coding, notice Chris equals 33 like Bible and Sunday. Mind you, Chris killed himself on a Sunday. Benoit was 40 years old at the time of his death. He died on the same day he was supposed to fight CM Punk at WWE's Vengeance event. Chris, or better yet Christopher Michael Benoit, killed his family in their Fayetteville, Georgia home. The last event Benoit showed up for was his fight against Elijah Burke for the ECW World Championship belt on June 19th, which was 29 days from Benoit's birthday. His surname Benoit equals 29 in the reduction cipher. Also, June 24th, 2007 had prime numerology of 57, and Chris, his first name, equals 57 in the ordinal cipher. Now, considering how pivotal Benoit was in the WWE, I calculated the span of time from Vince McMahon's 61st to Benoit's death, which turned out to be a span of 304 days. Using the rules of numerology, we're left with the number 34, which, as shown earlier, all these words equal 34. And Chris committed suicide exactly 34 days after his 40th birthday. Now, I also calculated from Benoit's death to what would have been Vince McMahon's 62nd birthday at the time, which was a span of 62 days or 8 weeks and 6 days apart.
Good evening. Tonight, this arena here in Corpus Christi, Texas, was to have been filled to capacity with enthusiastic WWE fans. Tonight's storyline was to have been the alleged demise of my character, Mr. McMahon. However, in reality, WWE superstar Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their son Daniel are dead. Their bodies were discovered this afternoon in their new suburban Atlanta home. The authorities are undergoing an investigation. We here in the WWE can only offer our condolences to the extended family of Chris Benoit.
In the entertainment industry, sacrifices are a regular occurrence for ritualistic purposes, often referred to as the Faustian bargain, a phrase that happens to equal 62 like the word sacrifice. There are fans till this day that speculate Benoit's death was part of a blood sacrifice for the growth of the WWE network. But moving away from Vince McMahon, notice the family's surname Benoit and sacrifice match in the Latin cipher, both equating to 206. I also found it interesting that Chris Benoit and the word kill both equal 59, considering how it all went down. Now, mind you, everything I broke down was according to the mainstream narrative. However, fans of Benoit have done some digging into the investigation itself and feel as if Chris was potentially framed and that there were intruders who came in and committed the heinous acts. Honestly, I wish I knew for certain, but there's one thing for sure, that the WWE did all that they can to really keep quiet about the legendary wrestler after the death of him and his family. After examining Chris's body, compared the condition of Benoit's brain to a man aged 80 or older with quote-unquote very severe Alzheimer's disease, this obviously not being a good look for the WWE's reputation. Another moment that brings more clarity to Dr. Cantu's findings was that Elijah Burke, the last wrestler to go against Benoit, stated that Benoit told him during their match, quote, "Talk to me out there, I might forget," unquote, which at the time Elijah didn't think much about. Granted, communication is common in the ring, but he himself stated that he found it odd considering what the medical report stated after Benoit's death. But yeah, with all that said, I think it's time to wrap this one up. Ultimately, Chris Benoit was truly a talented wrestler who managed to accomplish quite a lot during his 22-year career. Despite the tragic end for him and his family, wrestling fans around the world continue to remember the days he entertained them. Irregardless of what and how it went down, I want to say RIP to all of those involved. But by now, y'all know the drill. Be sure to drop your boy a comment and let me know what I may have missed. Also, don't forget to smash the hell out of that like button, share the video, and most importantly, subscribe, man. Remember, all of those things are free to do. It's been your boy Script, and I'm out of here. Peace. 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 Peace.